Coming up tonight on Fifth Third Business Beat, work on the banks is finally underway, but not everyone is pleased with the design plans. What goes on in this room prepares clients of one local branding firm for the unknown. Some creative advertising is bringing in business to this barbecue joint. Dan Monk has a story about Chiquita and its payoffs to paramilitary groups in Colombia. If you're looking for work, the library and the Super Job Center can offer help free of charge. John Morris talks with Crystal Faulkner about financial literacy. John Vollmer of Hyde Park Wealth Management offers some insight on investing in this economy. Gehring Center Chairman John Spencer talks to three members of the Selhorst family about family values in family business. And Scott Dowry, president of Storopac, joins Doug Bolton for Publishers Beat.
Fifth Third Business Beat is brought to you in part by Fifth Third Bank and Cincinnati Bell.
Hello, I'm Brian Patrick. Welcome to Fifth Third Business Beat for Friday, April 24th, 2009. On the front page of the Business Courier this week, work on the banks is finally underway, but the man who helped come up with the original plans for the project doesn't like what he sees. Jack Rouse calls the current design remarkably boring. He'd rather this work stops than have what he calls the wrong thing built on this riverfront site. Rouse and his firm design theme parks and cultural attractions. He was chairman of the now-defunct Riverfront Advisors Commission that was created for the banks 10 years ago. Others think the design needs work as well. Members of the city's Urban Design Review Board believe the design lacks any wow factor. The Atlanta-based development team of Carter and the Dawson Company say they've been addressing concerns, but say making changes suggested by the board would add costs to the project. The Dawson Company says there is a much more striking design for the office building proposed for the first phase of the project. Well, if you want to market your goods properly, it helps to be able to predict the future. The people at LPK are taking it a step further. The brand building, designing, and marketing firm has launched a new division called Next. Its job will be not only to determine what future trends will be, but why. It will ask and seek answers to a lot more questions concerning the purchase of certain products.
What lifestyle needs consumers are going to have, where they're going to be in the future, how their lives are going to change, and for customers where most of our fast-moving consumer good products exist. And customers would be how do retailers participate in that experience? And we have clients both in the retail environment and also in fast-moving consumer goods primarily.
About 30 employees are involved in LPK Next. Many of them also work for LPK's other divisions. They work in an unconventional workspace designed for brainstorming. What's a business owner to do when revenue is down? Well, he gets creative to get customers back in the door. For Kenny Tessel, owner of KT's Barbecue and Deli in Reading, it means propping a busty blonde mannequin outside his door to turn heads. Barbie, as she is now known, came from a catalog. Tessel's props her up each day, keeping her secured to a nearby pole with a bicycle chain. She wears clothing, sometimes very little clothing, that deli patrons have brought in for her, and a sign encouraging passers-by to stop in. Tessel says his business has dropped off 40%, and he had to do something to get noticed by all the traffic on Reading Road.
They're not staying in Reading. They're going in and out. I got to find some way to get them to stop. Purple Cow wasn't going to do it. A floating pig wasn't going to do it. And, you know, I was in Hollywood for 25 years. I know what sells in Hollywood. You know, it's sex.
Barbie seems to be working. Tessel says he's gotten 80 new customers in the last 3 weeks, and more than a dozen of them have become repeat customers. Tessel is a former TV actor who sells pulled pork sandwiches and brisket at his takeout eatery. Back to the Business Courier's front page, a story by Dan Monk on Chiquita and a report that's been filed in a Florida federal court detailing its payments to terrorists in Colombia. Dan, it's kind of a complicated case. Give us a little history, if you would.
Chiquita surprised investors and local business leaders in 2007 when it admitted that for a period of 15 years it made payments to paramilitary groups in Colombia. The company said it had no choice. It was being extorted, that they had to make these payments to protect the lives of their employees and their property in Colombia.
Now, sometime during this period, Chiquita found out that the group it was paying was designated as a terrorist group. What happened then?
Well, over these 15 years, Chiquita paid multiple different groups. In the early years, it was paying left-wing groups, and from '97 on, it was paying this right-wing group that was an enemy to the left-wing militias that it had been facing in Colombia. And what happened was that in 2001, the State Department designated this right-wing group, it was known as the AUC, they designated this group as a foreign terrorist organization, and that made payments to this group illegal under U.S. law. Chiquita discovered this designation something like 2 years after it was originally made. In 2003, February 2003 is when they actually discovered it, at which point they reported the payments to the Justice Department, and that set off a 4-year tangle with prosecutors over whether the payments were legal, whether they could continue while the government explored whether they were legal, and essentially what would happen to Chiquita because these payments were made.
So how was the criminal case eventually resolved?
Eventually, Chiquita pleaded to, in 2007, they pleaded guilty to a charge of engaging in transactions with a terrorist organization. They agreed to pay a $25 million fine. At the time they made the plea, some of its executives were still under investigation. They faced potential criminal charges. Eventually, they were told they wouldn't face prosecution. But Colombian prosecutors are still looking at this, and there's still litigation on a number of civil fronts. Chiquita faces something like 10 lawsuits, 9 of which have been consolidated in a Florida court, and shareholders are suing them, and so are the families of victims of these paramilitary groups.
So this special litigation committee was formed. Who's on this committee, and what are some of the things that this committee found?
Well, special litigation committee is like a legal tactic. It's a defense strategy, and it was formed to answer the shareholder complaints. There are 4 different shareholder complaints that says the company's actions essentially cost shareholders money. So in response to that, Chiquita formed this special litigation committee, and it is comprised of independent directors from Chiquita's board, all of whom joined the company after the payments ended in 2004. So what they did was investigate the company's behavior. They spent 9 months interviewing 50 people, reviewing 750,000 pages of documents, and they have published the first report that gives the real account of Chiquita executives who made these decisions, why they made the decisions, and how they responded once they realized the payments were illegal.
Did that SLC make a final determination about what Chiquita did?
Yeah, in the end it concluded that, and this is the quote from the document, in the end they said, faced with an untenable situation, Chiquita struggled to act in the best interest of the company and to do the right thing. And in the SLC's judgment, pursuing litigation will only prolong the company's entanglement in matters that have absorbed, distracted, and damaged it for close to 6 years. So essentially what they concluded was that Chiquita executives did everything they could when confronted with a horrible situation.
So the criminal case might be resolved, but are there other cases out there?
Yeah, there are these 10 lawsuits that are still pending in Florida. One expert told us this SLC report will go a long way toward getting the shareholder complaints dismissed. But a couple of the plaintiff lawyers, the people who are representing families of Colombian victims, they're saying that this report actually helps their case. It gave them detail that they didn't know before. You know, the company says the ultimate answer here is the answer it's been giving all along. It was forced to make these payments. It had no choice. They had to do it and to protect the lives of its employees. And they say the SLC affirms what they've been saying all along.
Fascinating story. Thanks, Dan. You can read the full story on the front page of this week's Business Courier. Here's the Courier Greater Cincinnati Stock Index tracking the performance of about 40 local stocks compared with the broader market using the Dow Jones Wilshire 5000 Index. The market turned down again last week as the local index slipped about 0.5%. The overall market fell around 3%.